This council meeting will be webcast, and I remind all those present that their words and actions will be broadcast to a wider audience, and certain conduct is unacceptable and will not be tolerated. Should any person not wish to be recorded, I advise that they should leave the meeting room prior to any statements being made. Any defamatory statements made are not the position of council and will remain an individual's opinion. Council accepts no responsibility for the defamatory statements, and all liability remains with the person making those remarks. I'll now call on Councillor Sutherland to the acknowledgement of country, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to say Yama Day Gomoroi, Walla Baganyani, Wunungalawa, Namumari, Maromara, Ngali Down, Dilia Yanbali, Garnamaris Kaingal Gomoroi, Namlanginda, Winalanginda, Winangalawa. And that's the language spoken by my family and our community. We're here right across the region, making sure that we acknowledge the country that we are on, the land of the Gomeroi people, and that we pay respects to our elders who have cared and still care for this country. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Sutherland. I'd ask all those who wish to stand for the meeting prayer, and I'd call on Pastor Jeff Flynn from the Uniting Church to please.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we humbly ask you to bestow your blessing upon this council. Direct and prosper its deliberations to the advancement of your glory and the true welfare of the people of the Tamworth Regional Council and Australia. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, councillors and community members. We'll now open the meeting, and I'll call for apologies and leave of absence. There is no apologies. I'll move to item 2, community consultation. We do have a number of speakers tonight in community consultation, so I'll call your name and I'll ask you to come to the table and present your presentation. We've actually got 3 minutes because we do have quite a few. I'm going to try and stick to that 3 minutes tonight too, if I can. So first of all, I'll call on James Hook.
Councillors, members of the public, I'm here today representing the Bendemeer Art Show, a show that's been going for 40 years, and we've been able to organise a very exciting project which we've got the acronym called The Nest. The Nest is the New England sculpture track which links at the moment Bendemeer, Walbrook, Walker Road and Walker with a series of nationally and internationally renowned sculptors. We were very fortunate to establish a relationship with the well-known sculptor in Walker, a fellow called Stephen King. And the Bendemeer Art Show Committee were keen, after 40 years, to be able to try and leave a long-lasting intergenerational legacy as a result of running a successful show for 40 years. Stephen came up with the idea that there was a sculpture collection based at Hillview, the old vice-regal residence in Sutton Forest, whereby for certain circumstances that sculpture collection was having to be disbanded, and there was an opportunity for us at a very short notice to be able to create a home and a siting for this collection. The Bendemeer community was able to raise in excess of $50,000 in a matter of weeks, because we had a very tight time frame to move some of these substantial sculptural works to our district, which we have done, and we now have them temporarily placed with a few minor works in the Bendemeer town, and that we're now progressing to the next stage, which is the installation. We've been very fortunate to have the support of council to date, from the Parks and Garden team, the engineers, your magnificent regional gallery crew, who've seen the opportunity that this offers for our community. And this little community voting with its feet, with with over $50,000 in community financial hard dollars, and also in kind support, think that we can create something which has got a huge benefit. You'll notice in the middle there that's a thing called Chopin's loop, now enjoys the nickname, Benjamin nickname of the Codlips, and it's been temporarily located on the banks of the McDonald River and generated quite a deal of interest straight away. You'll see that there are actually quite significant sculpture tracks which have created economic benefits for the regions being able to cultivate this. Those being the sculpture by the sea in Bondi, sculpture in the Snowies, and I'm just trying to get this to move forward. Yes, there's sculptures in the in Central West, and you'll note here that these are some of the sculptures we've actually have here ready to start being installed throughout our communities. Well, the Bendemeer Art Show has been able to establish, with its long working committee, we've got a structure in place which facilitates the organisation of this proposal. This proposal basically has enabled us to raise the funds, create a team to get it located. The final thing, just to give you some idea of the scale of some of these things, that we have some sculptures that are done by an international artist called Peter Lundberg, who has sculptures spread all around the world, and that this is he was the artist who prepared the Chopin's lute, and there's also a large sculpture called Walking Woman, which is currently being stored at Taminda.
James, have you got any more pictures? Because we had workshops and we looked at most of that,
right,
but we are in a very tight time frame.
Yep, and I'm respectful of that.
I really appreciate your presentation. I think all the councillors do, and we've had a workshop and looked at a lot of the stuff that you're doing out there, and congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, councillors.
Councillors, we'll now move to Daniel Gillette. Will you pay the employees on 10.2?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Jamie, for that introduction of this fantastic project. Councillors, I come and speak to you today on behalf of the Tamworth Regional Arts Advisory Committee, and I want to acknowledge the work that Councillors Sutherland, Coates and Southwell have done on this and many other projects over the term. This is a project which will bring significant cultural, tourist, educational and economic outcomes for Tamworth. It's something that you should certainly endorse tonight and get behind in the future. Visitors to the region, when they're looking at sculptures and particularly sculpture tracks, they stop and they spend money in local businesses. Unlike the many call flutes around town at the moment, you can't just whiz past and get the gist of what they are. You really do need to stop and grab a coffee and maybe grab a burger and talk to the locals about them. We see this, for example, in Waverley Council, who will report from their Sculptures by the Sea program. There's about $11.5 million spent every year just in those local businesses, on top of the contribution that goes into state government. We also know that these sorts of projects are more likely to attract investment from other levels of government. Down in the Snowy Valleys Council, they've so far had $9 million in contributions for a similar project of theirs. And we know that there's also a lot of corporate money that is floating around for these sorts of projects. For example, down in Murray River Council, they have so far looked at about $2 million for a similar project. These aren't just something that comes and goes, they're something that's there for a long time. And importantly, they support local artists. Each one of these pieces of art takes about $25,000 worth of investment. And part of the way that the model works here is these pieces of art will be for sale, and a 15% commission will be returned to the Bendemeer Art Show Committee, which will fund further projects, which will allow us to keep these things going, ensuring a long-term commitment for the council from this excellent community group. It's bringing together those outlying villages into our city, and that's something that we know we sometimes struggle to do, particularly in the arts and cultural space. The sort of support that the committee needs, of course, is really one handshake at a time with council. So already we know that art is very good at moving hearts and minds, and sometimes even very good at moving wallets. It's not very good at moving earth. It's not very good at moving red tape. And that's where council can come in and really get behind this excellent community project by helping with the bureaucratic goings on by helping with access to the right people to talk to about earth moving, the right people to talk to about getting the site placements right and making sure that these projects can be there for a long time. So your endorsement tonight will send a really clear signal to the community, which has already worked so hard on this project. I can't think of another community project that raised 50 grand in 2 weeks and managed to get something through the North Connects tunnel with 50 mil of clearance. This is a great project and I heartily endorse it to you. I hope you do the same.
Thank you. Third speaker we have tonight is Peter Ryan on 8.4, the Tamworth Regional Aquatic Centre. Pete, you've done this before?
Thanks, councillors, council staff, swim club, water polo members and the public gallery. My name's Peter Ryan. I'm a representative of the Tamworth Aquatic Group, which was formed in 2017. The TAG group consists of Tamworth City Swim Club, 360 Scully Park Swim Club, Moombi Katingal Swim Club and Tamworth Water Polo. We've all come together to help to make a new aquatic centre for the Tamworth region a reality. As stated in the council papers, the debate about the aquatic facilities for the Tamworth region has been a hot topic by successive councils for some 20 years. But however, the debate date backs a lot further than this. Former Tamworth Mayor James Piper started campaigning for a public aquatic facility in 1881 due to complaints of nude swimming in the Peel River. 55 years later, in 1936, his dream became a reality with the opening of the Tamworth Olympic Pool. Fast forward to 1968, the Tamworth population had more than doubled from 10,000 to 22,000 people. Following years of public debate, a second pool was opened to much fanfare, with the Honourable Davis Hughes commenting that the South and West Memorial Swimming Pool would rank as one of the most prestigious swimming centres in the state. The Tamworth aquatic facilities were fantastic in their day, but they're now way past their use by date and now are not fit for purpose. The new aquatic centre is not just for high performance swimmers. Speak to any local parents about trying to get their kids into a learn to swim program. It's nearly impossible. We now have a generation of kids that cannot swim. And for a regional city like Tamworth, with a river running through the middle of it, with many creeks and dams in our region, this is not good. The last 7 years has been frustrating for the TAG group as to how long the project has taken, the obstacles that we've had to overcome, as well as the misinformation that's been peddled through the communities at different times. The TAG group would publicly like to thank council staff of Paul Kelly and Sam Erickson, who have worked tirelessly in an often challenging environment, as well as Callum Fletcher, who has liaised and consulted with the TAG group and other community groups about the technical aspects of the facility to come up with the recommendations as presented. The utilisation of the new facility will be amazing. We'll be able to have a water polo game, swim squad training, learn to swim programs and recreational swimmers, all using the pool at the same time. Through smart planning, new technologies and proposed facilities, it'll be fantastic for our region. The TAG group requests councillors to adopt the recommendations as presented by council staff and endorse option 6 as the preferred pool configuration. We ask that these recommendations be adopted tonight without delay to enable council to achieve the timelines required to retain the New South Wales funding of $15 million that our local member Kevin Anderson fought very hard to win for our region. Should council not meet the timelines as scheduled as part of the New South Wales Government grant and the funding is lost, it could be a very long time before we get any further funding based on the current economic and political environment, and this would be a massive setback for new aquatic and high performance sports centre for our region. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I now call on Bella Pollard to speak to 8.4 as well.
Hi, my name's Bella, and I'm a swimmer and a part-time coach with Tamworth City Swimming Club. A little bit about me. I started swimming at a very young age, and I originally swam for Corinda Swimming Club, which was where I was living at the time. As I started progressing with my swimming, I eventually started training in winter at Tamworth up here, and then I moved on to train full-time all year round up here. Last year, my family moved up here to be closer to everything, and I was able to be a lot closer to training, and it was cut down on the travel time a lot. I often have to travel to Sydney or other places to compete, and while being closer to Tamworth has definitely benefited my training, I'm still aware of how disadvantaged we are here compared to a lot of other places. Anyone who wants to pursue competitive sport needs a pool all year round, and because I teach swimming for the swimming club, I see the huge improvement of kids over summer season when they have access like 24/7. Unfortunately, because many of them can't train over winter, it's back to square one by the time summer comes back around. The kids that do train over winter have very limited access, and currently I'm teaching lessons once a week at the Limble, and the pool there is only 15 metres. At the moment, I can train a maximum of 6 times a week and for an hour and a half during winter. That might seem like a lot, but when compared to the girls I'm competing against who are training 10 to 12 times a week and for 2 to 3 hours, it's really not enough to keep up with them. On occasion, we have so many people in each lane of varying abilities that I spend most of the session duck diving under people or accidentally running them over. Clubs in surrounding areas like Corindi and Werris Creek, who they don't have pools during winter there, they have to travel to Gunnedah, where it's cheaper and more accessible for them to swim. During COVID, when some of the pools were open but others weren't, as a club, I remember travelling to Inverell a couple times to train, which was about 3 hours away. And also, I ended up swimming in my grandparents' dam with a wetsuit to try and keep up with my training. The current facilities are not only limited, but they're also only 25 metres. Recently, I competed at School Sport Australia swimming, which was just a couple weeks ago, and I did the 200 fly against girls who have a 50-metre pool all year round. So in the race, I ended up coming 4th. I was swimming really well. I had a fantastic 3rd lap. It got to about the 4th lap, and lactic acid really just hit me and took me down. And looking back and reflecting on my performance and my training coming up to it, the explanation I came up with was that I'd been training in a 25-metre pool, which, while that might not seem like a big difference, it really does affect your fitness, especially when I was then switched to competing in a 50-metre pool. Yeah, so that's the difference and the advantage that a 50-metre pool all-round can give. We have the same problem every year when National Age Swimming comes around. It's in mid-April, and every year the pool closes about a week or so before the meet starts. So we end up having to go up to Queensland early, which, as you know, is a very long trip, and we have to hire lane space up there to continue training. I enjoy teaching kids swimming, but I can see that without these new facilities and with the facilities we currently have, these kids will face the same challenges as me and potentially won't reach their full potential. Often they have to move away to a city to pursue sport. I remember when I had friends who got scholarships to Brisbane and the Gold Coast for swimming, I was so jealous that they had the opportunity to pursue their swimming like that, that I considered going to boarding school. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. When it comes down to it, we're really disadvantaged both competitively and developmentally as swimmers when we just don't have the same access to facilities that other kids have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We again have Libby Magan, 8.4. I'll have to ask you to try and...
There's something, like a video game or something being played, or the TV's making noise, or... I don't know what it was.
Is,
That's right.
There's some sort of noise in the gallery.
is there somebody in the gallery using their phone, or...
Oh, right.
It's sitting here.
Yeah, all right.
It's gone now.
Yeah.
Watch it on the
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Can you try and keep your presentation to about 3 minutes? We've let the last couple just go over that a little bit in a very tight time frame, but please.
I've tried to cut it down as much as I can.
You do what you can. We're looking forward to hearing from you.
Mayor Webb and councillors, hello, my name is Libby McGann. I'm addressing you today as a ratepayer, as a secretary of Tamworth Water Polo, and also a newly made life member. It was in 91 that my father, Gordon McGann, secretary of Scully Park Swimming Club, started fundraising for a year-round aquatic centre. It's now come full circle for me, doing the same, advocating for the same project over 30 years later, with pools that are 30 years older and past their end of life stage. Last year I was honoured with a life membership of Tamworth Water Polo, and I have a long career which has seen me play professionally in Hungary. I've represented Australian country water polo for 15 years. Now I reside in Tamworth, and my involvement in the sport is one of administration, coaching, mentoring and developing our sport. I also referee water polo at the highest level in Australia, the Australian Water Polo League. I travel throughout the summer to develop my skills, and I'm looking to become maybe an Olympic referee myself in 2032 in Brisbane. I have many skills to offer our community, and I give my time generously to volunteer and develop our sport here in Tamworth. As a regional athlete, I know the challenges that these people will face, and I've faced them, and I'd like to be able to say I helped to remove some of the barriers to this generation. The real challenge for our members is that they can't train year round to keep up their swim fitness, and this has increased the skill gap between our regional and metro athletes. We have a select few now that travel to Sydney weekly at a huge financial cost for them. We can't run state academy programs in Tamworth, not because we don't have the coaching, but because we don't have the facilities. Last month we had four athletes nominate for the state team program, and 3 were culled before even getting an opportunity to trial, and that was because of their regional location. The reality is for our talented athletes that their residential location already puts them at a disadvantage, and this doesn't have to be so. On the back of a very successful Olympics for Australia and Australian water polo, we typically see that children are inspired by the athletes they see and their favourite ones that are on social media, and we're already fielding many inquiries about how people can get involved and how schools can send teams into our competitions, and we'd love to be able to capitalise on that interest. The proposed aquatic centre will be a wonderful facility for international teams looking for a base before Brisbane 2032. And I believe hockey would be the same. It would be a great place for international teams to come, and how exciting would that be for our town and to spur on the next generation of athletes. My son, who plays water polo, said to me while we were watching the Olympic Games, "Gee, Brisbane 32, we might be able to go and watch some games, Mum, what do you think?" And I said to him, "Mate, you could be playing." And I thought I could see in his head thinking, yeah, that's the age I'll be. What he was thinking it, he might not have been thinking it at the time, but I was thinking it, and I was also thinking I could be there refereeing. Councillors, I'm asking you on behalf of our 350 members to approve this recommendation to progress the pool without deferral and to capitalise on the funding that you already hold. There is a real possibility of this project is deferred and our current pools become unusable because they're at the end of life stage. Tamworth could be left with no pool at all, which would be devastating for our community.
You've got a little more time if you want to keep talking.
I could talk all day about it. I'm a very passionate person about water polo, but I just wanted to say it's not just the elite groups that'll benefit. For us, it's all we can see the benefit from learn to swim to retirees to social groups to rehabbing injuries, swimming and water polo. But we'd love to offer our services for social groups in the community who have never played before to come and give it a go. Come and give it a go and have a coffee at the pool afterwards and make it a regular thing. That's just my opinion.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mitch Hanlon on 12.3.
Mayor Webb, councillors, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm speaking in regards to item 11, the proposed subdivision sale of council-owned land, lot 73 and deposit plan 1107-041. Having all these young people here has been great because it's a similar theme to what we've just heard from the other speakers. It's about the sale of the velodrome, the subdivision of the velodrome to create the Tamworth University campus. So it's actually for the future of our kids, give them an opportunity to gain a tertiary education without the excessive cost of travelling away and living even in Armidale or Newcastle or elsewhere. I know everyone's seen the machines down at the velodrome, moving the old velodrome site. They will be gone in a couple of weeks' time.
You've got to address the council.
Oh, sorry. It's important that everyone understands that this subdivision has to happen to allow this project to proceed. I know people just think it's just pegs in the grounds and the signatures on the plan, but it's going to take time to make that happen. I would support council on what you're doing in this, but there's other things that need to happen as well. So this is just one of those steps that we need to move forward on. The importance of the project is manifold. It will help our kids go into the education that most don't get. We have a low tertiary completion rate for this town, this region. It's actually below the state average, quite far below. And in my own practice, we struggle to get people to relocate to Tamworth, so we're trying to grow our own. And doing a degree by correspondence is a hard slog, and a lot don't do it. We need our business to become able to hire people who have got that the high level tertiary completion. My own grandmother never went past year 6. My mother went to year 9. Now we need to have people who have to have tertiary completion. Otherwise, our economy will not achieve the fourth world industrial revolution that we're encountering now. So it fits in with our Tamworth Regional Blueprint 100. It upskills our existing workforce. It provides a supply of qualified professionals that we're sadly lacking. It supports our growth agenda. It will drive economic growth. It will actually keep an 18 to 25-year-old demographic in town that we are losing to a certain extent, and don't come back, I can assure you. I'm paying, in my own practice, we're paying 2 kids to go to university, and they both told us we're not coming back because they've discovered the beaches and girlfriends. So we can't let these kids go. And it's going to contribute to our social well-being. So it's a well-balanced thing. So please, I support council. Council's been part of this journey for many years, I know. It's part of the tripartite agreement with the federal and state government, and I applaud the support that council's given me. And my group here, who are also here today. So I just wish to support the motion in front of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Because we're getting very close to time, could I ask for someone to call for suspension?
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I'll move that we call for suspension of order.
Second, seconder, please. Councillor Sutherland. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
This will allow us time to hear the next 2 speakers. So, thank you. We'll move on to the next speaker, which is Peter Gill.
Mayor, councillors, staff and visitors, I speak against the proposed sale of the former athletics field to a developer. I request that for visibility and transparency, this item be moved to open council. In coming here tonight, I have also emailed councillors. At the meeting 25 June 2024, as you're aware, I spoke against the proposed business case at item 10.2. It is noted as reported in the Northern Daily Leader dated 27th of June 2024, the Mayor stated that the Visitor Experience Centre was 7 to 10 years away. The reason for the rush to sell is not understood. The details sought by members of the public is shrouded in confidence for this meeting, despite a key element which may confer a commercial advantage, the price, having been divulged in the business paper of 25 June 2024. I query whether this, along with a few other items on council agenda, is an attempt to facilitate this matter being dealt with during the caretaker period, of possibly 4 months before a new council is formed. The major failure of 2 previous visitor information centres since 1995 has been prominence, ease of access, visibility, accessibility and overcrowding. As a ratepayer asked to dip into my pocket to cover such, I ask for once, can we please get this right? The development as proposed in the sketch provided for the 25th of June 2024, in my view, has similar hallmarks of crowding, accessibility and limited scope for future growth. The parcel of land in the former athletics field is unique in terms of its location, visibility, accessibility, and in my view is too good an opportunity to waste on another shopping centre. With a VEC, Visitor Experience Centre, tucked in a corner. A huge opportunity to enhance and build the country music scene will be frittered away for mere shekels. I do support the concept of a visitor experience centre. We just need to do it right the third time. I also believe there is some potential synergy with performing arts that could be investigated as part of this. Thank you.
Council, we'll move on to our next speaker, Darren Ambrose, 7.2.
Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate being given the opportunity to speak this evening to voice my concerns regarding the proposed changes to the Phase 1 Tamworth Regional Local Environmental Plan 2010. I, along with all members of my family, strongly oppose the suggested zoning changes for the property at 7 Scotts Road and also the adjoining family-owned property at 5 Hilton Street, from the current MU1 zoning to the proposed RU4. The current MU1 zoning is appropriate for the land. The proposed council rezoning to RU4 will have a significant impact on the value of the land and its future development. This land, which has been a family asset for over 80 plus years, and the proposed zoning changes to this land would have a negative mental health outcome for the family owners should these changes be allowed to go ahead. Thank you.
That brings an end to community consultation. Could I have a motion to resume standing orders, please? Councillor Betts, second Councillor South. All in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Councillors, we'll now move on to item 3 on the agenda, minutes from the previous meeting. Could I have somebody to move their true and correct record? Councillor Berg, second to Councillor Tickle. Any questions in relation to those minutes? There being no questions, I'll put the recommendation, the correct record. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Councillors, we'll move on to item 4, disclosure of interest. Do we have any disclosure of interest? Councillor Berg.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I'd like to disclose a non-pecuniary, less than significant interest in item 8.4, as I am an honorary life member of the Tamworth City Swimming Club and also of New England Central North Swimming. I'll be staying in the room and I'll be speaking to it, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Any further? Yes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would also like to declare a non-pecuniary less than significant interest in item 8.4, as my children are members of the Tamworth City Swimming Club. Thanks.
Thank you. Further, Councillor Rodder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to record a less than significant non-pecuniary interest in relation to items 9.1 and 9.2, as I am an employee of the Department of Planning, Housing and Infrastructure, Crown Lands, and those two parcels of land are certainly Crown land, and I'll be staying in the chamber and participating in discussion.
Thank you. Further disclosures? There being no further disclosures, I'll move on to the next item, which is 5, a Merrill minute. There is no Merrill minutes tonight. To item 6, we do have a notice of motion from Councillor Southwood. Would you like to stand and move that?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like to move that motion.
Can I have a seconder for that? Councillor Tick, you may speak to that.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I stand before you today to emphasise the critical importance of the motion calling for more shade in our parks and playgrounds, particularly over swing sets. This motion is not just about enhancing comfort, it is about safeguarding the health and wellbeing of our children, supporting our heat strategy and making our community a more inviting place for residents and tourists alike. Skin cancer is the most common cancer in Australia, with almost all cases caused by overexposure to the sun's harmful UV radiation. Alarmingly, children are especially vulnerable. The Cancer Institute of New South Wales has reported that high sun exposure during the first 10 years of life more than doubles the risk of developing melanoma, the deadliest form of skin cancer. The Cancer Institute of New South Wales' comprehensive audit of over 2,500 playgrounds across New South Wales revealed 20% had no shade over their equipment. In the shaded playgrounds, coverage often only extended to a quarter of the whole playground itself, far below what is necessary to protect our children. To address this, the Cancer Institute recommends that at least 70% of the playgrounds are covered by high quality shade. This coverage can reduce UV radiation by up to 75% and lower the surface temperatures by up to 20 degrees Celsius, significantly improving safety and comfort. Our council has already recognised the importance of addressing extreme heat with our dedicated heat strategy. Increasing shade in our parks and playgrounds directly supports this strategy by creating cooler, safer outdoor spaces. It also aligns with our tourism strategy, making recreational areas more inviting for both residents and visitors. As representatives of the Tamworth community, we have a duty of care to ensure our public spaces are safe, welcoming and enjoyable. By voting in favour of this motion, we can reduce the risk of skin cancer, support our heat strategy, boost tourism, all while creating a healthier and more attractive environment for everyone. I encourage everyone to please support this notice of motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Further, would there be someone wishing to speak against that recommendation? Anyone else wishing to make comments on that recommendation?
Yeah, mate.
Councillor Mears.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to thank Councillor Southwell for the motion. Having come from a family that's got a very high level of melanoma and skin cancers from extreme exposure during our youth or their youth, I think this is a marvellous opportunity to make things safe for our kids and have them outside more, a much more, protected environment. And moving into another motion that's coming before us, and I won't go into that at the moment, but I see a lot of young kids up the back here, or people, that also in the current situation with the pools that we have are doing lap after lap after lap in an uncovered pool. So anything to do with supporting our kids or children's safety as with this for the playgrounds, I fully support. Thank you.
Further comments, councillors?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I certainly support this motion. It's one that we've been wanting to happen for some time, and it's clearly outlined in the report all the benefits, and I just agree with how hot it is around our parks, or a number of our parks, and particularly the highly utilised ones. And I've stood there with children on swings and listened to parents and grandparents and great aunties say, why can't we have shade over these areas? And we are growing many trees, and they will take a while, of course, to create the shade. And it's also, we must note that we're not expecting council to fund the whole thing. There are a number of funding opportunities available. I feel as a council we miss out on a lot, actually. There are numerous community grants, non-government funding and government funding. So I think that we really do have to make an effort to source those funding opportunities, as was the case at Adventure Playground when the project manager of that park, a volunteer from the community, sourced the funding for those shade cloths from the Cancer Council. So there is funding out there, and I think that we must make sure that we pursue it rather than, and it's not expected at all in this motion that council fund it all. So I would commend the recommendation to you.
Councillor Berg.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I've just got a quick question. I do support the motion wholeheartedly, but I just wonder at what point should we have some budgetary considerations just to address the cost of doing it, and should we be applying funds, or are we happy just to accept the motion as it stands? I'm happy to support as it stands, but I think there are some funds that are going to be involved in doing this.
Further comments, councillors? I might go to the director first.
Through you, Mr Mayor. If the motion's successful, myself and the staff can definitely comply with those 3 points in the motion. But the point I would make is that the budget issue will be for the new council to decide, because while we can prioritise the shade structures over the relative parks based on usage, to allocate the funding required from council to match grant funding or contribute to grant funding, will be a decision for the new council, and that decision will have to be made based on a comparison to expenditure across all other assets that council and services that council provides, not just in the sport and rec area. My sport and rec staff would love nothing better than to put shade structures over all of the swings in the council area, but that'll be a decision for the new council to prioritise in the budget.
Thank you. That satisfies your question, Councillor Burke. Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a question, probably as much as anything, because I do actually recognise that Councillor Southwell has been very dedicated to protecting our young and people when they're involved in leisure activities. But probably a question in terms of, at the moment, when we develop any new master plans for parks, either new parks or upgrading parks, do we actually include shade sales in that particular master plan at this point in time? And if we don't, should we be doing that, is my
Probably
question.
a question for the director, but I think that's probably a question for the new council in how they are going to support this into the funding model.
Mr. Mayor, council has a parks hierarchy which has got a list of all of our parks in different hierarchy and the embellishment that happens in all of those parks. I'm just not sure about the shade structures, but my manager of sport and rec, Paul Kelly, is here and he can certainly answer that question.
Mr. Kelly.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Coates, the situation with that is that we, as Peter said, we have an open space management guide that guides our embellishment in all future parks and both our service level and our embellishment. In all future strategies, we do talk about shade, and we talk shade loosely, both natural shade and artificial shade through shade structures. So I think we'll see later in the council meeting with a report about the Stevedans and Mundell, and that talks about shade as well.
Further comments, councillors? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Councillors, we'll move into open council reports, and I know there's a lot of people in the audience that are standing, and the item they're here for is number 8.4. I might call for someone to move suspension of standing orders. Councillor Bett, second.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I would move that we suspend standing orders.
And put up second to Councillor Burke.
Thank you.
All those in favour of suspending standing orders so that we can bring that on forward?
Aye.
Aye. Those against, carried. So for the members in the gallery, we've just moved item 8.4, the Tamworth Regional Aquatic Centre report to the forefront so that we can debate that particular item now. So could I call for a mover and a second? A move, Councillor Burke, seconded Councillor Sutherland. Councillor Burke, do you wish to speak to that?
I do, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much for the opportunity. Mr. Mayor, this has been a long time coming. The community's been fighting for a aquatic sports and health centre. I've got to try and use that terminology the whole time tonight because that's what we applied for and that's what the grant funding applies to, is much more than just aquatics. It's to do with sports and health. And Mr. Mayor, my involvement goes back in swimming in excess of 30 years, and I know that prior to the speakers tonight, with regards to the TAG group that's been working on it concurrently with council to get it to where it is today. Prior to that, we had TADAC that through Hazelden Airlines put a lot of funding together, and those monies I think were used to actually put the heating in this current Scully Park pool. Mr. Mayor, I read that that heating has completely failed, and we have no longer any opportunity to extend the season with that outdoor heating that was so effective for so long. Mr. Mayor, fixing the old pools, as it's already been said tonight, is in excess of tens of millions of dollars. I don't know if it can be quantified easily, but to my way of thinking, and I'm sure all my fellow councillors will support, it's chasing good money after bad. I think that it was said tonight that the Scully Parks facility was built in, I think, 66. And here we are I don't know the maths really well, but some 50, 60 years hence. I think that we've had a good life. I think we've had a long life out of that pool. I know it's the most problematic pool of the two. The Tamworth City pool, I know, had a lot of money spent on it as it emerged out of the drought to be filled again with new filtration and a lot of concrete work that actually has probably enhanced its life for a little bit longer. But I think for the swimming community, it's important to understand that there's a resolution within council that whatever happens tonight and whatever happens in terms of a potential building process, that all facilities will remain open until the completion of the new Aquatic Sports and Health Centre, and that then the strategic plan is to actually close and decommission and to sell the Scully Park site. Mr. Mayor, the new facility has more than just one pool in it. It has an incredible pool in terms of 50 metres with 10 2.5 metre lanes, a wet deck facility. It has the capacity for a head boom to come up to allow the water polo to operate in its 2 metre depth, the whole length of the pool, but also, as it was explained tonight, to allow multiple user groups to simultaneously use the facility. And I think that's the key that we haven't had with any of our swimming arrangements at the moment. Already year-round facilities exist in a lot of places other than Tamworth, in terms of publicly owned ones. Gunnedah, Inverell, it was mentioned tonight by Bella, Narrabri, Lightning Ridge and Muswellbrook all have publicly owned all year-round facilities. Privately owned, we have Armidale with the UNE and the TAS, and Tamworth does have a privately owned one that we believe, it's been said, is closing in June 26. And I guess that's to align, this is the 360, to align with the eventual opening date of the Aquatic Sports and Health Centre. We've just completed 16 days of glued to the television watching the Paris Olympics, with another 14 days to go with the Paralympics. We've got our swimming and our water polo teams have excelled in both of those competitions. And Mr. Mayor, wouldn't it be great to actually see, we've had Olympians before, I think, come through water polo, but I'm not sure if we've ever had an Olympian come through our swimming and compete at that level. But what a wonderful thing for a young person to aspire to not just get through to LA in 28, but to hopefully represent Australia in Brisbane at 2032. What are the problems with the proposal? Funding is a clear problem that we have. We originally set out to build a $60 million facility. We had $15 million granted to us by the New South Wales State Government, the former government, and we were going to go and seek under the right qualifications, and we felt it was a very, very strong application to get the other $15 million federal government co-matched with that, and then for Tamworth Regional Council to co-fund the other $30 million. And this is where a lot of the problem has happened, that the federal funding, not only did it not come, but we were advised that it wasn't coming months after we believed that we were going to be advised. So it's thrown delays into this whole process, and what that's done has meant that we've actually had to change the scope of the whole project. And in changing the whole scope, it's put that funding of the state government at risk. And what we, I believe, need to do tonight is not put that further at risk by delaying the decision that we want to make in terms of giving the state government an opportunity to rescind that $15 million. Mr. Mayor, this is the last council meeting before we go into caretaker mode, and a new council would not be up and running in a short period of time. And we have 3 retiring councillors, Councillor Betts, Councillor Tickle and Councillor Southwell, and how much we're going to miss the 3 of you. And we will get at least 3 new councillors, and I think that we're in a vulnerable period of this whole timeline for the Aquatics and Sports Health Centre. And I commend it to Council's decision for a positive outcome tonight. Thank you.
Councillors, anyone wish to speak against? councillors. Any further comments, councillors? Councillor Southwood.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think my fellow councillor Burke has covered a lot of this, but just to add in, I just wanted to make mention of this very momentous occasion if it does go ahead. This is not just an investment in infrastructure, it is an investment in the future health and well-being of our community. We are at a critical juncture. If we do not act now, we risk losing the $15 million in funding promised by the state government. This opportunity is too significant to pass up, especially when considering the pressing needs of our growing population. Our current pools are at the end of their life and no longer adequate to meet the demands of our residents, as Councillor Burke has highlighted. Tamworth needs this facility that can be used all year round, as was highlighted by Bella earlier tonight. Not just during the summer months. A new centre would provide significantly more opportunities for our children to learn to swim. And I can tell you, I'm witnessing this firsthand. I've got 3 kids under 8 and my youngest is learning to swim at the moment, and it's very hard in the current space at the moment because there's just not enough providers. And the facility that we're looking at funding will provide, they'll be able to run, as was said last week in a meeting by one of our staff, they'll be able to run multiple learn to swim because the whole base can be raised to a level where you could have 10, 20, 30 groups potentially. How exciting is that? The inclusion of the movable floor in the design will allow a wide range of learn to swim programs, ensuring accessibility for swimmers of all ages and abilities. Beyond health and safety, a modern centre would also serve as a key attraction, drawing both residents and visitors to Tamworth. It would be a hub for community engagement, supporting local events and boosting our tourism economy. There may even be some Olympians here in the room in Brisbane. How exciting is that? Can't wait to see. Let us seize the moment. By supporting this motion, we not only secure essential funding, but also take a decisive step toward creating a healthier, more vibrant Tamworth. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, at this point in time, there's only 2 things lacking in Tamworth's suite of high-class sporting facilities, and one of them is an aquatic centre. There's no doubt that this proposed aquatic facility will be state-of-the-art and therefore adaptable for the many uses required of it. There's also no question around the amount of consultation, research, evaluation, etc. that's been conducted over the last 20-odd years. Consideration of this item and the associated recommendation has consumed my thoughts for the past few days, as there are many complex parts to it. On the one hand, there's the pool dilemma, a rather tenuous commitment by the state government of $15 million towards an aquatic and centre of excellence sports health facility. And it would appear that the lack of communication back from New South Wales Office of Sport in regards to requests for further information and clarification commitment of that project has actually contributed significantly. Tamworth currently has 2 pools, one 56-year-old and one 87-year-old, both showing their age in terms of maintenance requirements. Maintaining these pools is becoming cost prohibitive and not a good investment. As Councillor Burke said, putting good money into old. It's my understanding that this alone costs up to $750,000 per year. And this, as said before, the Scully Park pool has now lost its ability for an extended swimming season due to the heating. So continued funds will need to be put into these facilities in order just to keep them open and operational. And one would have to ask whether it was a good investment. Tamworth is unable to attract high-class aquatic events due to the pools and their facilities. Because of their age, neither pool provides inclusivity in terms of access for everyone, including access to change rooms. Tamworth does not have the training facilities for national and international high-performance swimmers and other water sports athletes. It's timely for us to remember, actually, that Tamworth boasts at least 24 Olympians who have called Tamworth home, and it would be good to add swimming and other water sports to that. Tamworth also lacks adequate learn-to-swim facilities for our young people, and this should be a right when we live in Australia. And as mentioned by several people, the benefits of warm water exercise covers quite a number of people in our community. On the other hand is the funding dilemma. Unfortunately, Council was unsuccessful in obtaining a federal government grant for 1/3 of the pool costing. So with a revised budget cost of $45 million and to utilise the $15 million from the very specific state government grant, Council needs to make a co-contribution of $30 million. And Council has advised that the Office of Sport will review other applications if it does not see a commitment from our Council. Unfortunately, this is a situation that councils often find themselves in that they are at the mercy of higher levels of government when it comes to funding. When I first heard of this as a member of the Audit and Risk Committee, my thoughts turned to the following. What are the risks with doing it or with not doing it? How will Council fund this? What will be the impact on residents and ratepayers, on Council's financial sustainability? We recently had an approved special rate variation, and obviously that's going to impact people's thoughts on what we actually do with that. But just as a reminder, 66% of those funds are going to roads, but the other 34% was for operational expenses and capital expenses, so maintenance and renewals. If Council decides not to go ahead with the Aquatic Centre and the current pool needs replacing in 5 to 10 years, we'll have to borrow all the money to replace those pools because we can't get funding just for a pool. As the funding of the Aquatic Centre is tied to this 15 million, of the funding is tied to the SRB as stated when that was presented, I asked the question also around what would be the case, and my concern is what would be the case if there was any change in direction with the new council. With or without the Aquatic Centre, the sustainability of the council is going to be monitored, and I feel that it's important that we are aware that that could be a change with our new council. It may well be said that borrowing for this project could impact on Council's ability to borrow for other projects in the short to medium term future. That's always the case, so it doesn't really matter what we're doing or when we're doing it. What we borrow has an impact on what we can borrow into the future. And the other thing that I've considered is the people versus the people dilemma. Those who believe that 10% or roughly of the SRV should not be put into an asset renewal such as the Aquatic Centre. It should be used for other projects. But what would those projects be? Of all of our major projects that we know that we need into the future, this is the only one that has grant funding available for the foreseeable future. And there are those who believe the fight has continued far too long and the need to renew our aquatic facilities is essential. That Tamworth has this opportunity with the current state government funding and should not risk losing it. Unfortunately, timing has become critical. To leave a big decision like this for a new council, we would have to go through that education and understanding process, would likely mean a loss of that grant funding because of the time. And they'd still be left with the dilemma of what to do with the two pools. So the driver for a decision like this for me can't and shouldn't be influenced by emotions or the desire to be re-elected or any other component. It has to be based on good governance principles and sound financial responsibility and sustainability. And today's most important decision is whether or not to endorse the funding strategy so that we can move on to the next level. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'll go to Councillor Sutherland first, then.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm in full support of the recommendation and concur with my fellow councillors in the words that they've said. To add to the conversation, I think that the Aquatics Sport and Health Centre is
Councillor Sutherland, you've got to address.
Is not only a facility that our community wants, but it's a facility that our community deserves. I think that an investment in this facility is an investment in the long-term financial sustainability and also an investment in our people. You know, we heard from Peter, from Bella and Libby, and hearing the experience of young people who thrive to be invested in and have the ability to be supported to grow and develop into whatever their aspirations may be, to the people who are looking to learn how to swim. I think that this facility is a lot of years in the making, and we'd like to acknowledge everybody over the last 30 years that has contributed to this contribution. And in some ways it's an honour to be here in this chair tonight, to be able to champion the decision to progress this moving forward. I hear Councillor Coates' conversation and question around the financial sustainability. One thing I'd like to point out is that the business model and the business case for this facility stacks up. You know, we know that an investment in this facility is a smart financial decision, especially considering the situation with our existing 2 pools as assets. And so, for me, it's an honour to stand here and to be able to support this wholeheartedly. And I'm looking forward to this project hitting the ground. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All councillors have been advised about the $15 million funding from the state government and the precariousness of that funding should it not be expended soon. And obviously, you know, as a council, we were disappointed that the Commonwealth Government didn't, you know, consider us favourably in relation to our application to them. A big concern, obviously, as from members of the community in relation to the pool site, which obviously has been decided long ago, was obviously, you know, about how difficult it may be for some kids, particularly from lower socioeconomic families, to access, to get to the site. And so I hope, you know, along the way we can progress plans for transport options for them. And also maintaining the pool entry fees to be affordable to residents, very important. And we need to obviously maintain public ownership of this facility to ensure that unequivocally. I understand the plight of our residents and our kids that need to train all year round for their future sporting endeavours, and whether they be competitive swimmers or our water polo teams, they need to have the opportunities other communities have around the state. And I believe that this project will bookend the other facilities out there. I'm a hockey player and lover, but I understand, you know, you know, that facility is great for our town. I understand all the facilities out there are great for our town, and so I understand that this facility will enable our residents to be competitive in the future, particularly leading up to those other Olympics. I feel we have been placed between a rock and a hard place with this decision, to make it on the last night before caretaker. I'm not entirely happy about the funding strategy. As I said, I would have liked to have seen funding from the Commonwealth Government. I think, you know, our projects stack up, and in fact, so often with projects in our region, they stack up higher than others. But that's the vagaries of the political realities that we actually live in. So, in conclusion, it'll be a long time. Certainly not within. Believe that in the foreseeable future, we are unlikely to see another $15 million amount from a figure from the state government or Commonwealth Government, perhaps, for a project like this. And so, I think we need to bite the bullet and progress it.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to raise an amendment, and I spoke to Councillor Burke earlier, and I thought, because the pools that we've got, just their use-by date, they've gone. And I came up with a cheaper option. One of them was that I thought we'd put some ropes down the river on some of those big gum trees, and Councillor Burke said that we need to put some milk bottles for roping lanes. But seriously, I'm absolutely supportive of this. Ever since the amalgamation of council, when Councillor Webb and I got onto council in 2004, there was 27 or 29 candidates, and every one of those candidates had on their priority an aquatic centre for Tamworth.
43.
43, that's right, it was 43, yeah. There was some groups, but there was a lot of people, everyone, and I went through and had a look at most of them over the last few days, and everyone within their 10 top priorities said that we needed an aquatic centre. Times have come and go, and we thought we had the funding and we had the concept, but right now we have the best opportunity that we've had in my term on council. It was beyond the term of this particular council that it was envisaged. But right now, with the support, the $15 million support from the state government and council strategy to move through the $30 million to get that appropriate figure, I'm totally in support of it. But all the comments that my previous councillor made about the benefits are certainly there, and as I said, supporting the project. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As my fellow councillor said, again, council faces a really difficult decision relating to the expenditure grants and in line with the current or the recent SRV. Our staff's done an amazing job putting this world-class facility together, one that would replace the old and near end-of-life swimming facilities in Tamworth. Their commitment itself has been long and arduous, and their work has been meticulous on the planning and bringing to the region what could be a world-class facility. I have, like many as well, really struggled over the last few weeks with the idea of losing the $15 million grant that we did lose from the federal government. But I don't want to then risk losing the other 15 that we have. That money is extremely hard to come by, and we've got it, so we should use it to its full potential. If we don't proceed, the grant could be lost. And we don't know if there's a longer time frame. We did ask for that information. It's not been forthcoming, so that sort of government plays our hands at this as well. I do have concerns over the funding. $30 million is a lot of money. I've had some other conversations during the day and this evening, and the experts tell me that it's now quite feasible that this development can go ahead, even though during the SRV, if we spent too much money or didn't get that, we could potentially lose ALEC and TREC. So that's where I started balancing up the funding, but I've got to go with the experts. I'm not an accountant or a bookkeeper or anything like that matter. So I will be supporting this motion. But a lot of that came from, and I've said all along when I came to council, I'll listen to the public, and there's an incredible gallery behind me that's come in. I've been on my own to some degree. I'm not much into the water sports other than fishing, as we all know, and I'm an idiot on that. But listening to Bella raised my youth with me, and I, don't laugh please, I learnt to play AFL football and played at pretty high levels in Victoria. Winter sports, shorts, no sleeve shirt, etc., and froze my arms off. Like Councillor Burke raised, we've watched the Olympics over the last couple of weeks with glee, and I was really invested, and it's not been one of those sports that I have a lot to do with, but watching the Australian, especially the women's water polo team, and I certainly don't want people as fit and strong and as healthy and angry as that coming after me for saying no, so there's a lot of them here. As I said, with that community consultation, and look, not everybody knows everyone and etc., and we get bits and pieces, but please contact your councillors if I'm here next year or later in the year, or I'm not. But take advantage of your councillors. We don't know everything about everything. I heard about swimming in Tamworth and the water polo teams, etc., etc. As I said, I don't have the fitness to go anywhere near most of that. So please contact us, because we're representing the residents, and it's the passion that our residents bring on issues like this that helps sway our decisions at times, even though the financial side could be very difficult. And the only thing I'd say moving forward, that something that I've been thinking about for a little while as well, Tamworth's the crown, and this will be one of the jewels in that crown. But we have a lot of other small towns and areas in this region, Nundle, Manila, Barraba, a lot of places have pools, and they too are very decrepit and are going to be needing upgrading and fixing, probably sooner than some of the ones in Tamworth. So I'm happy for this program to go ahead, or this development to go ahead. But what I would ask council, or the next council, to seriously consider speaking to the locals in those smaller towns. Their children need the opportunity to learn to swim as well. Their children need the opportunity of having a reasonable sized swimming pool to train. And as Bella said, the 25 metres poses an enormous problem to her. So the bigger pools we can build in the smaller region or smaller towns as well, the better all our kids will be in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. A momentous occasion indeed this evening. We've had 33 years mentioned. I've lived here for 37 years and I can guarantee, as Councillor Betts said, this aquatic centre and indoor facility has been talked about for years. In more recent times, so when I first stood for council and was successful 16 years ago, I was lobbied very hard by the various swimming groups, and unfortunately some families actually left town because they just did not have that opportunity for their children. So this magnificent facility will offer the opportunities for others to move here, and certainly offer the opportunity to our full regional community to come here and train all year round and to use the facilities. But we must remember this is not only a Tamworth Regional Aquatic Centre with 10 lanes, 50 metres, movable floor, how magnificent, but it is also a northern inland centre of sport and health. And we must remember that because there is more to the centre than the pool, the state-of-the-art magnificent pool. And I'd ask you, Mr Mayor, if you may outline the extra parts to the centre that we have, because they also are very significant.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'll just briefly, the plan for the aquatic centre and sports and health facility would be to have a sports and health component to this that would include education, would include allied health, it would include sports science, and all the associated industries that go with those sports services. A creche as well, and as well as the indoor 50-metre pool, there'll be a warm water pool, which will be our understanding, and certainly the business case indicates that'll be heavily used. The learn to swim component of the facility will be heavily used as well. And yeah, when we built the regional playground down here, we get hundreds of thousands of people using that facility, and I have no doubt that this facility, when it's built, will get similar usage across the region.
Thank you. Councillor Burke, you would close the debate? Or?
Mr Mayor, I don't think anyone spoke against it, so I don't think I have the right to.
I was going to say, point of order. Point of order.
Councillors, I don't think there's much more to say. The only thing I will say is that every project we've built in this great city of ours or in this region has relied on grant funding. There is no possible way that we as a council have been able to fund any of the major projects that we have seen come up over my time on council and before without grant funding that's given to us by the state government and given to us by the federal government. It's very sad that such a magnificent project that's been planned for many years and we got grants from the state government was completely disregarded by the federal government. It put us in a very insidious position where if we don't do something and we try and raise the money and do what we need to do, we more than likely will lose that $15 million. That would be something that the whole of our community would hate us for. And I certainly believe that we've got to do everything we can to make sure that this facility gets up and running, because I remember, as Councillor Betts said, when we got on to council in 2004, it was something that everyone was talking about. If we go back to the 90s, TRC was talking about it. This is a momentous occasion. If what I'm hearing tonight, everyone's going to support this recommendation. I think we're going to be a very fortunate community in the years to come, because we are recognised nationwide and certainly statewide, but nationwide, as having some of the best sporting facilities of any regional centre in the nation. And I had the pleasure of watching some grandkids play sport on the weekend, and a fellow from Sydney came up and he said he'd come out of quite an affluent suburb in Sydney and they had some reasonably good sporting facilities. And he said, but they're not a spot on what Tamworth's got. And this is probably the one sporting facility that we really need. And I'll just finish off by saying that we took a very brave decision many years ago to build the ALEC. And back then we had to borrow around $20 million, and of course that was back in about 2007. It was opened in 2009. And people were very critical of us in the community of we were going to build a white elephant. Well, we all know what that did to our region. We know what it's done to the equine industry. We know what it's done to the community as a whole, in particular the business community and of obviously the hospitality community. And I don't think this will be any less. And I'm looking forward to seeing it start, and looking forward to seeing a few of the councillors sitting around this table now, whether we're here or not, into the future, being able to go and have a swim in it. So, councillors, I think it's a fantastic night to be here, and I'm going to put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? I have to say that's carried unanimously, and I say to the audience, well done on your behalf, because you've lobbied it well. Further to the audience, I'm going to call for a motion to resume standing orders, which means we'll go back to our normal business paper. We won't be offended if you decide to. So I'll call for a motion to resume standing orders. Councillor Sutherland, seconded Councillor Mears. All those in favour say aye.
Aye. Brooke, you better go and say goodnight to your lilies. Brooke, you better go and say goodnight to your lilies.
Can we have an it feels like a whole council meeting, that one.
We just pack up and go now.
Alex will.
When?
Just feels like it's the whole council meeting.
So, councillors, we best move on, and we'll move on to.
Who knows now?
Go to 7.1.
We're at
second, please. Move 7.1. Move Councillor Coates, Councillor Southwell. Councillor Coates, you wish to speak to that? Anyone wish to speak against that? Any further comments on that? 7.1. I'll put recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Councillors will go to 7.2. Amendment to the Tamworth Regional Local Environmental Plan. Could I move in a second? Move Councillor Betts, second to Councillor Sutherland. Betts, do you wish to speak to that?
Just very briefly, there's a lot of reading in that one, and I did read a lot of it, and I do want to commend the staff in the amount of work that's been put into that, because it's an incredible amount of work. People say that we sort of haven't met some time frames with getting DAs and whatever out on time, but I can tell you, when you look at the amount of work that the staff have put into a report such as that, and the complexity and the importance of it, they really need to be commended. And there's some great outcomes that I see in reading it. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? No one wishing to speak against that? No, any further comments? Councillor Ryder?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would actually like to move an amendment for basically further to the comments of the Speaker in public consultation. I would like to move an amendment to the recommendation that Lot 1, DP 797999, being 7 Scott Road, South Tamworth, remain in the current land use classification rather than change to, I think, RU4 from MU1. And if I have a seconder, I'll explain why.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mears.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is, I believe, this is patently unfair to the residents to, in that small parcel of land, to change what they've enjoyed for a long period of time. It limits what they are likely to be able to do with the parcel of land into the future, and I believe devalues a significant asset that has been in the family for more than 85 years. Furthermore, they only got official notice of the proposal via a letter dated 9th of August. So 4 days ago in the mail by hand delivery. The elderly owner advised me that she checked the mail on Friday, there was nothing there, and then had a look in the mailbox on Sunday and it was there. So hence the theory that it was actually hand delivered later on Friday afternoon. The elderly owners are extremely distressed at this proposal and the short amount of time that they've had to respond. I do have a copy of their letter, and some councillors might remember that site was going to be the Masters site to rival Bunnings at the time, and so you can imagine if they are impacted by a zoning change, they may not be able to maybe construct residential properties or something like that on it, other than the house that currently resides on that property. So I think it would be a small change to our proposal, phase 1 proposal, to give those residents some assurance into the future that their main asset, their home, will not be devalued by a rezoning of that property.
Councillor, I'm going to ask our director and whether she would like to answer, or one of the staff. I see Mitch sitting up the back, just to help us explain to us a little bit more about what that's going to mean to that block.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor, through you. I'll start, and maybe Mitch might need to add something, but I've failed to see that there will be a change to the value of the property when it's already significantly flood prone, and the part that has been appropriately rezoned is the part that is basically undevelopable. So any prospective purchaser or their lawyer worth their salt will soon find that out, and I actually think it's really unfair to any future purchaser, for that matter, that they're misled to think that you can develop that whole property for a mixed use when that isn't possible, and actually part of it, would be quite dangerous from a flooding perspective. That's unfortunate for the landowner, but they've known since the original proposal to rezone the land happened many years ago, and it was just an administrative mistake that the zoning didn't change the whole of the property, and that's unfortunate for the owner, but the land is not suitable for development, no matter what it's zoned.
Thank you. Well, I'll ask, is there anyone wishing to speak against the amendment? We're talking about the amendment now, so anyone wishing to speak against the amendment? Councillor Southwell.
Yeah, just to reiterate what our director said, I think that it's probably not a good decision to go forward with that amendment based on what has just been said by our director. I think we have to get the advice of our specialists who do this day in, day out, and I think actually changing it back would be not a good decision given the flooding issues of the land.
Further comments?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I just have a question actually in terms of whether Councillor Rodden knows what the actual impact is from a financial perspective if that land is rezoned, and once rezoned, if it was sold, just to know what that actually means.
I haven't seen the letter, and I haven't seen, so I'm a bit reluctant to say too much about it. Again, I guess we've got to rely on what the staff have said. And Councillor Roddy, you put forward, have you got a copy of that letter?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
It's a very difficult situation to be in when we're discussing a matter like this and none of us have seen that letter. It makes it very hard for councillors to sit around this table to have a full understanding of what it's all about and what the losses or so forth might be.
Mr Mayor, I only had received a copy of this about 4:30 p.m. today.
Councillors, this is a report that's been in front of us for some time, and to get information at this late stage, I'm going to be guided by the councillors of where to go, but councillors, I'll ask for any further comments before we move on.
Mr Mayor, just a question, if I could.
Yes.
So just in relation to that block, I think if everyone, most of us here would understand what it looks like. There's only the main flood prone area is the bit of Barnes Gully that adjoins Locks Lane. So it's a tiny little bit, unusual shape. And I think back in 2014 when Masters wanted it, they were talking about some form of bridge over that. I can remember at the time I was a bit against it because of the damage that it might cause that little lagoon. But they're obviously not talking about developing the flood-prone land. And I think we all understand about the impacts of flood-prone land and development. It's the bits obviously on higher ground that are probably in some respects higher than the properties on the other side. And in relation to values and devaluation of their property, if they couldn't potentially, if they were to sell it to a prospective purchaser that thought they might be able to develop something on there, maybe a small shop or some residences or townhouses or whatever, and can't do that now, that would be obviously devalue their property. I'm not a valuer, but I think that I could understand what their concerns are.
But I just have one question to the director. Is this going to impact on where they're actually living in their house area?
To be honest, Mr Mayor, no, it doesn't impact on the existing dwelling. And I would say that really the area that's been rezoned is the area that's affected by flooding. They can still develop on the remainder of the site, which is still remain zoned mixed use. So it's it's not as if the whole property.
So just a flood area. So councillor, I'll take one more question.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So just to clarify, it is only so the LEP zone for the flood-prone land will basically be at the intersection of the gully and the higher ground. Is that correct?
Councillor Baird.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, look, I agree with the fellow councillor Southwell. We can't make decisions like this on the run, and I do take the advice of our staff. They put a lot of work into this the plan, and the information that I had back when the Masters development was there was that it should have been rezoned anyway because it was just not suitable for any development because of the flood proneness of it. And I think that we just need to go status quo. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Betts, I know what you're talking about, and it was access as well. So, councillors, further comments?
Yeah.
Further comments, councillors? We're talking about the amendment.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I'm not in support of the amendment in changing the LEP as it stands. But if I can ask a question, that was just a comment that was made around community consultation. I think that throughout this whole process, the community consultation has been one of the most important features of the whole process. Reading through the documents, you can see the amount of input that the community have had and how much voices have been listened to and changes have been made throughout the whole process. So to hear that residents impacted by this rezoning weren't informed in due process sounds a bit bizarre. So a bit of clarity on that, if I can, through you, Mr Mayor, maybe through staff.
I'll have to go back to you, Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor. The staff actually hand-delivered letters to all of those. And for further information on that, Mr Mayor, if I can ask either Mitch or Chris, who actually was involved in that process. So I'm correct, aren't I?
Yes, so the letters were hand-delivered, but also community consultation happened as part of the exhibition of the plan proposal, which was, for the month. Any owners that were directly impacted by any changes to the cleaning controls were sent letters to advise that the public exhibition period was open to have that ability to make a submission on that question.
Councillors, any further comments before I put them?
Mr Mayor, just with the community consultation process, I'm not quite sure if Councillor Sutherland asked this definitively, but did you receive a submission from this particular person with regards to their problem with the rezoning that's referenced in the letter?
Director to Mitch.
Ask Mitch that question.
Yes.
We did.
Yep.
And we responded.
And we responded. That's part of the appendices. So in the appendices, off the top of my head, I'm not too sure what submission number that submission was, but it was addressed as part of the submission.
Thank you. Further comments, councillors? I'm going to put the amendment. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? The amendment's lost. Further comment on the recommendation? Councillor Southgate.
We have a number of big reports coming to us tonight, so we might be here for a few more hours yet, but this is one of them. The Phase 1 review of the Tamworth Regional LEP 2010 has been a huge undertaking, involving consultation with state agencies, landowners and the broader community. The result is better alignment with the New England Northwest Regional Plan and TRC's very own Blueprint 100. There are new planning controls which will work to address some of the major challenges facing the future health and prosperity of the TRC region, such as climate change, providing more affordable housing, creating capacity for more housing and employment in strategic locations, and preserving local character and heritage. Thank you to the team for this momentous effort that's been involved in pulling this together, and well done.
Further comments, councillors? Being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. We'll move on to item 7.3. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Move councillor Tickle, second councillor Bird. Councillor Tickle wishes to speak to that. Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Anyone wish to make comment on that recommendation? Councillor Bird. Councillor Rodder.
Mr Mayor, I just have a question with regards to authorising the GM and Mayor. I know we workshopped that and that was included, but Mr Mayor, will this still apply when we go into caretaker mode? Or does this roll? It rolls through into the next council. Yeah. And I ask that question because you know, your tenure as mayor will have a finality to it within this life cycle of council. And I just wondered where we sit to be able to negotiate.
Okay.
Do we need to also include something in the motion that validates the authority beyond caretaker?
What happens is on midnight on the 13th, we all cease being councillors, and I will cease being the mayor. The general manager then has all delegations that's already been put in place. In respect to this, there's probably not much more can be said other than there will be a draft plan put out by planning in relation to this in September, probably in mid to late September this year. And I would suggest that there will be very little action on this front, because both these projects, while they've been approved so far, they're months away. And of course, it'll be the new council that will be the ones that will be involved in that decision making. The new mayor will then have to work with the general manager, and there'll be some negotiations, and whatever comes out of that by the report and by the recommendation have to come back to the council of the day for consideration. But I think we all need to be aware there is a draft coming out in September, and we were talking about that last week in Sydney, whether they get it out on time or not, because they are behind the 8 ball a bit with most of the stuff they're doing. So does that answer your question, Councillor Bird?
Yeah, thanks.
Further questions or further comments?
Thank you, Mr.
Coates.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just through you to perhaps the director, when I was actually reading it, we're talking about the applicant having to agree, because it is a voluntary planning offer. And if they don't agree to the conditions that they offer in a reasonable time, what protection do we have that won't go to us, section 7.12, just because they dilly-dally? Is there any protection for us as a council? That's the first question.
Well, I know a little bit, but I'll ask you to make comment.
So as you've rightly said, Councillor, it's a voluntary planning agreement, so the idea is that both sides agree. In this case, the proponents have made an offer to council. If council resolves to accept those offers tonight, and then the proponent delays the process so that the condition of consent comes into play and says, sorry, you've taken too long, council, we do have the option of formally approaching the Secretary of the Department of Planning and actually raising that we have rightly and appropriately agreed on a voluntary planning agreement, and the proponent is now inappropriately delaying the process. So we do have that option, and the Secretary of Planning actually has the power to enforce the VPA, so the agreement that we have signed.
Further comments? Question?
Another question.
Question, yeah.
And it's just around these, probably nothing necessarily to do with this, but given that we've now got 5 renewable energy projects as well as poles and wires going through our region, it's about why has Tamworth Regional Council not actually been considered to be part of the RES, because that's quite a large number of projects, and can we actually look into that? And I understand that there's a policy coming out in September, but it's just about why we were not originally included, and if we were, what would be the benefits of actually being in a RES as opposed to hanging on the edge with all of these projects.
Okay. I could just answer that a little bit in terms of conversations that I had this week with Quorum, Energy Co, Transport New South Wales, and Penny Sharp, the Minister for all things renewable, I'll say. There is an act that covers the renewable energy zones. Back under the previous government, John Barilaro and Matt Keane pulled the map out and drew a couple of circles around 5 areas. The New England was one of those areas, and we're right on the edge of that. And the intention of that was that they would take power lines from, in this case, from Liddell through to the New England, and they're going through our place. Why we're getting so many applications in front of us is the fact that there is going to be transmission lines running through our area. People are seeing the opportunity to hook into those transmission lines. Whilst it's not in the RES, it's still permissible to do what they want to do. And of course, they're jumping in and trying to do that. The same arguments are being had in the Midwest, Midwestern Council, and also in and around Dubbo in that Arana region. Warren Bungles, to a large degree, are impacted on by that as well. So it's not just happening here. They're about 18 months in front of us, and from what I can glean from the Minister, there's been a lot of mistakes made in that Arana and Midwestern area, and they're going to learn from their mistakes, and they're going to talk to us and work with us into the future. But those RESs are actually covered by an Act, and I've asked a question only last week when I was in Sydney. Well, if they're covered by an Act, where do we sit in relation to that, and what could we potentially miss out on if we're not covered by that Act that is covering the RESs? They were unable at that point in time to give me a definitive answer. So Sam Copeland and I, Sam's the chair of our Quorum, which is a coalition of renewable energy mayors, and I are going to spend more time talking to, that's when we both get re-elected, of course, talking to the Minister and talking to Energy Co in the coming months. But nothing much is going to happen here until everything's just so long-winded in this particular space. So I wouldn't be too worried about where we're going to go over the next couple of months. It's going to be quite some time before stuff's put in place. Councillor Rodder.
Questions, Mr Mayor. Just in relation to the... so first of all, are there benefits to being in a RES in terms of road infrastructure and all that sort of stuff? But in relation to the Kalala battery energy storage system, are you aware that if their development approval includes any enhancements to, say, Bergman's Lane and Burgess Lane and or Kalala Lane? Because obviously there's going to be significant impact on if it's Bergman's Lane, because it wouldn't take the sort of traffic that would be using it to get infrastructure to that site. But if you're happy for me just to continue on with my own comments first, and then can answer that. I was certainly initially opposed to us adopting that policy, almost like I felt the cart before the horse in relation to VPAs, because I thought it was like a sellout. That Planning New South Wales was expecting us to enter into agreement even before the renewable energy project had been approved by Planning New South Wales or the Independent Planning Commission, and now that we're seeing these projects in our region and getting approval, we see this cynical effort by renewable energy companies to simply discount their offerings to the people well below our benchmark 1.5%, which I think is not unreasonable. In fact, sometimes there'll be a lot of people in our local government area that would say that's actually not enough, depending where it is. And I feel that we should be writing to the state government to complain about the free-for-all that now we're facing, of them saying this is what you're getting. It's not good enough. And I believe it's occurring at the expense of our residents in our local government area, and I believe that the state government should be ensuring our country areas impacted by these proposals are compensated fairly.
Yeah, Councillor Rodder, I think there's been a lot of lessons learned by the state government, in particular the various ministries who are working with some of these proponents. In the Midwest again and in Iran, we're probably 18 months ahead of us, and they've told us they're not going to make the same mistakes. They're going to talk to us before it goes too much, quite through. One of the things that I did pick up and glean down there, because I did ask a question of New South Wales, and that was, you're talking about all the funding for the state roads, putting in roundabouts, doing this and widening roads and taking corners out and doing all the rest of it on your state roads. What are you doing with our local roads? And they said, we have no funding. We have to work out what we're going to do with that into the future. So they're a long way behind getting it all sorted. So I think we've just got to watch this space, and hopefully, I think through conversations in the coming months with the various ministers through quorum, that's, as I say, if we get elected again, Sam Copeland and myself will have decided that we will go on our own to see those ministers, because we are being affected here in a very negative way with Energy Code. And I have to say, I'll be speaking out of school, but the minister is not very happy with the way they've been consulting at the moment. And of course, if we want to go alone and talk about the problems that we're going to face, so that at least we're ahead of the game. And I think that we've got the opportunity to do that, because they're sort of 18 months in front of us down there. We've got a bit of time to work on it, but we can't drop the ball on. And I don't know, Gina, did you want to make any further comments on any of that?
I can only agree with you, Mr. Mayor, that at the moment where the region is wearing all the impacts with in terms of benefit, I agree with that. I find that as with this recommendation, with what the department is requiring, it certainly doesn't comply with our policy, but we really have little choice in the matter, unfortunately, other than to agree, because otherwise we will be left with the Section 12 contributions, and that will, mean that community loses potentially an extra $2 million.
So whoever the new council is and whoever the new mayor is has got a lot of work to do. I would suggest that over the next probably 4 months, 5 months. Further comments, councillors? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? We'll move from there on to infrastructure and services. We'll move to 8.1, Global Gateway Park funding of the upgrade of electrical infrastructure. Could I remove in a second and move Councillor Southwell, second Councillor. Who did I get second? Oh. Councillor Sutherland.
There's a few with their hands up.
Councillor South, would you wish to speak to that?
No, thank you.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Any further comments on that recommendation? Councillor Burke.
Mr. Mayor, I was really only removing my glasses, but now that you went to me. And I also started a Mentos, so it's not a good... Could I actually defer to one of the other councillors for a moment?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I did have a question in relation to the existing electrical infrastructure. Was it like pre-existing our Global Gateway Park, or was it installed during the first stages of the subdivision? And if it was just a few years ago, why didn't we consider the capacity requirements that we might need for the whole subdivision, and could that not have been done then? I was talking to my fellow councillor Burke about this, and he indicated that that it's likely that this won't be the last of this upgrade, which seems like that, to use that term, we're throwing good money after bad. Then if we shouldn't just do it right and do it once.
I might ask the director to make some comments, but I will say that every development that is put forward, and this is a development the council's doing it, whether we're doing it or a developer is doing it, Essential Energy will be seeking contributions to the electrical upgrades. But do you want to make a comment?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. There's a couple of variables there. Essential Energy used to fund these upgrades themselves once upon a time, and so their policies change, and they could change again. We're not, but right at the moment, their policy is that these upgrades will be funded by the developer, and council is the developer. Also, the studies required to determine the capacity take some time, and they're done by consultants working with the Essential Energy. And once you have that information, we knew there was enough capacity there to develop the first 2 or 3 stages, but how much capacity we would need, we know now, and it's going to cost $8 million to upgrade the capacity to do another 2 stages, and then, as the report says, it's probably another 3 and then another $4 million after that to complete the full capacity for the Gateway Park. At the moment, the way the policy is with Essential Energy, all developers will be facing those costs up for upgraded capacity, given where the developments potentially are, and that's just, we're in the game of developing that land. It's a cost we just have to bear now. And sorry, Mr. Mayor, and I think the important part in the report is that we either get in front of the line or we get at the back of the line.
And we need to be in the front of the line so we can be actually getting some benefits out of those sales. Councillor Southall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I was just going to highlight that obviously, we are the developer, as has been mentioned. I think that the Tamworth Global Gateway Park is a really good opportunity for council to actually make some revenue. We're pretty limited with revenue raising with either rates, fees and charges. This is a one-off project where we can be a developer, and there's many examples of where other councils have done this throughout the state, throughout Australia, and it's really proving to be quite profitable for us. One of the downsides, obviously, is that you need to provide services, and one of those services is electricity in order to service the next stages of the development. I think the most important thing here is timing, as has been mentioned by our director. And so if we don't get the timing right here, then the 90-week timeframe could be extended by several months. So that's probably the most important thing, is that this isn't delayed and that we get on the front foot. And I think that's what this report is actually doing. Thank you.
Further comments, councillors? Councillor Bird.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I've got a couple of, and please, it's an observation. I'm assuming that when we spend this money that we're not less competitive in that marketplace for those blocks as compared to the ones across the road and other industrial developments. So I'm assuming, unless I'm wrong, please, I don't require an answer for that. The second thing is, how do we account for that money going from the Department of Sewer? And I would assume that it would be repatriated once lots are sold and they recover that 8.1. So I'm assuming that that's what's going to happen, rather than a term loan and I'm also assuming that commercial interest rates would apply to that, as if we were borrowing externally. I'm just seeing heads nod, so that's making me feel more comfortable. And Mr. Mayor, my last question is, I'm assuming the power's going underground through these lots.
Confirming right, all the way.
So if the power's going underground, we always hear how much more expensive it is to go underground. Totally support it, but I'm just wondering, are other industrial developments that we're competing against also got underground power, and we're competing on a level playing field?
You want to make a comment, Darryl?
Mr. Mayor, I might ask our project manager who's been dealing with this, Gal Fletcher, if he'd make a comment on that. I would assume they all would be, but I'll let Gal answer that.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I believe the Central Energy guidelines is underground for all new developments. And just with the capacity comment, We haven't done any upgrades to capacity yet for gateway parkers in the first one.
Thank you.
I'll just make a further comment, Councillor Burke, and that is that when we purchased that land and set out to do that particular development, which is going to be benefiting our community for many, many years to come as we sell blocks of ground, one of the things that we determined was that there'd be a lot of treescapes and a lot of landscaping around that whole subdivision. So we have no choice really but to go underground, and I think every subdivision that I've seen in recent times, industrial subdivision, not just in Tamworth but in other areas, the power has been all underground. Further comments, councillors? No further comments. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. We'll move on to item 8.2. Could I have a mover and a second, please? Move Councillor Cade, second to Councillor Tickle. Councillor Cade, wish to speak to that? No. Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Any comments on the recommendation? Pretty straightforward. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. We'll move straight to item 8.3. Councillor Betts, Regional Traffic Committee.
Yes.
Moved. Seconded, Councillor Mears. Wish to speak to that, Councillor
No,
Betts?
Mr.
Anyone wish to speak against the recommendations there? Any comments on the recommendations? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. On our way through
On that one.
8.5. Tamworth Integrated Transport Plan. Can I have a mover and a second, please? Councillor Betts, seconded Councillor Sutherland. Councillor Betts, do you wish to speak to that?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Plan, anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Further comments on the recommendation? Councillor Sutherland.
Yeah, just a quick comment, Mr. Mayor. Just acknowledge the girth of this document and the impact that it has, and just want to say that when it comes to the movement in place framework, I think it's a great framework and it's a positive step forward in that direction. It starts to really balance out, the needs of community from an economic growth point of view, but also making sure that human services is a factor. And Mr. Mayor, just acknowledge that there's some significant projects that are outlined in this document for people interested to have a good look through it and see what that impact is.
Thanks, Councillor Sutherland. Any further comments? I'll just make one comment, and that is that it's included in that, of course, is the active transport strategy, and it's very timely that we get this particular integrated transport plan in place, because I'm led to believe there's quite a bit of money that may become available through some grants to help us with some future development there. And I know that the staff have worked very hard in the past to get some great active transport pathways around our city, and of course in the future there'll be a lot more, and I think that's fantastic. So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. We'll go to 8.6, the continuation of the waste wagon. So I'll move in a second to Councillor Tickle, second to Councillor Coates. Want to speak to that, Councillor Tickle?
Yes, just from my point of view, it's been very successful because I have used it once, and my neighbours also contributed to getting rid of some of their items. And whilst it does cost money, it is far more cost effective than the bulky goods pickup that we used to have, and the litter left everywhere for weeks until caught up on the pickup, and residents still thought the bulky goods went on for weeks and weeks on end. So it does cost money, but we have to remember the bulk of goods cost more, and particularly in staff time as well. And it's an opportunity for people that, like myself, I don't have a trailer, and there are plenty more like me out there, and to use the service, and I hope it continues. And it has been a trial, and we're going to cut the days down, and that will probably save some money and still meet the needs. So, yeah, great. I support the motion.
Anybody wish to speak against that recommendation? Councillor Betts, you wish to speak?
Yeah, just a comment, Mr. Mayor. I just noticed on social media recently there's been some comments, quite a lot of comments, in regards to the fact that we haven't got the free tip vouchers, and the people been quoting that they don't get in the mail. It might be something that we need to work with our communications people to make sure that people know that they are available, but they need to be accessed through the council portal. They can ring up or they can actually get them online. But the fact that the information's out there that people don't think that they've got access to the free tip vouchers to then be able to use the wagon as well. Thanks.
They certainly are available. I'll ask maybe Bruce to make comment on how they can access those. Just a quick comment, yeah.
Mr Mayor, yes, Councillor Betts is right. The vouchers are available online. Council, in fact, made a decision not to mail them out anymore because of the cost of the mail out is substantial, and they are available online. And that's where you can access them from.
It's about $30,000. That's it. It's about a $30,000 cost to mail them out. So we need to make sure that people out there know they're available and know how they can access them. There'll be many people out there that won't want to access them online or don't have that capacity. So we need to address that as well. Councillor, you've got a question, have you?
Oh, well, I do. The director, I think, as well as them being available online, people don't have that facility. Can they not go into customer service?
Yes, Mr Mayor, that's correct. If they want to, they can ring up. If they're a pensioner, in fact, and want to claim a pension rebate, in fact, they have to go in to do that, but they can certainly ring.
Thank you. Further comments, Councillor Southwell?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just briefly, just to add to what Councillor Tickle has said, I think this has been a really good win-win outcome for council and community. The bulky goods cost us around about $190,000 in the last year that it was run, and to provide that service today would be more like $230,000. And this, we're looking at about the $80,000 mark. So although it is expensive, it's still a lot cheaper than the bulky goods, as was highlighted. And it's providing that service to those who really need it, who either don't have access to a trailer or a ute, or physically couldn't do it even if they did. So I think, it's meeting the access needs for our elderly, people with disabilities, and everyone else who doesn't have access to a trailer. And it's keeping our region looking good at the end of the day, because people are clearing out old things and getting rid of what they don't need. Also to highlight, this is also available to the whole region, whereas the bulky goods wasn't actually available to everyone throughout the whole region. So it's been a great project, and I hope it continues. Thanks.
Further comments, councillors? Councillor Mears?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, as some of the councillors already said, I think perhaps we need to engage with the community a bit better than what we are doing. A lot of people are aware of how to get their vouchers, but it was reported, I think it was in the leader the other day, that we now have a new tip in Tamworth, which is the old Rosary College site, and there's a hell of a lot of large items in there, apparently, from the photos that I saw online. And then who cleans that up? Is that our responsibility as the Education Department? Or who? If people aren't having access to that service, it would appear that some people are. And it's not just at the Rosary site. There are other places around the region where people just don't have facilities to get their stuff picked up or don't know about it. And some of the roads I go on fishing as well are getting a lot more couches and mattresses and those sorts of things just dumped because people either don't know they can get a voucher, don't know they can get a pickup, or maybe they just don't have the get up and go to take things down to the tip themselves. But it's certainly becoming a bit of a problem. So I know Councillor Southwell said it's improving the city, but there are certain parts of that it's certainly being detrimental to the city.
Councillor Mears, Rosary College has been the dumping site for many, many years, and it is up to the owners of that site to either secure the site, and if there's rubbish dumped there, it becomes their responsibility. As far as dumping rubbish on the side of the road, we urge all our residents, if they see anyone dumping rubbish illegally, to report that dumping, either through number plates or what have you. I do know there's been a number of people have been spoken to because some of their documents have had their names on it. That's smart, and I don't know what we do with that. It's just about educating people that they need to go to the rubbish tip, they need to dump their rubbish there. Unfortunately, there are some people in our community that don't seem to care.
Yeah. Just a quick question, Mr Mayor, on Rosary College.
Question?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Given that it's the property of, the responsibility of the owner of Rosary College, When was the last time we contacted them and asked them to clean up their mess or to secure their boundaries?
That's a question I can't answer, Councillor Lee. Is there anyone around who can answer that question?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, I can respond to councillors after tonight, but on the spur of the moment,
Thank you.
I'd like to take it on notice.
Thank you. Yep.
I'll make some comments there, and that is, there has been complaints probably 18 months ago where we did get involved. We did go over, we did some media over there with the TV, and of course those owners were contacted back then and asked could they clean up the areas, one of them being a public department, the New South Wales Government Department. So that's the case. So further comments, councillors, or we will move on to putting that recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. We'll move to item 8.7. And Councillor Clerk, seconded Councillor Southwell.
Can I move the amended motion, please?
Pardon?
Can I please move the amended motion as per what's on the screen?
What's the amended motion, Mr. Logan? You're moving that.
There's also the rest of the
Hang on, Councillor Southwell, are you going to move that as the motion? Not an amendment, as the motion?
Yes.
Oh, Bede moved it, sorry. So you want to move an amendment?
Yes, please.
Oh, Mr Mayor, my motion wasn't seconded, so I'm happy to just sit down.
Sorry?
My motion hadn't been seconded.
Okay. So we don't actually have a motion on the table. Bede's moved a motion that wasn't seconded. Does somebody want to second Bede's motion? So that lapses. Now we're calling for. No one seconded your motion, Bede.
Yeah. So I'll move the motion as per what's printed on the screen, please.
Just that.
Yeah. It's being fixed up now. The total is on there.
And then to make it.
So you want to move the recommendation as printed, including that?
Yes.
So we need a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Councillor Neal.
I'll second, yes. So I was trying to read it. I put my glasses.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, this is pretty straightforward. The amendment is, the new motion, I should say, as per the screen, is really about making a submission. I think that, there is quite a few, it's quite a negative impact on council. Once again, we've got cost shifting happening here with the proposed levy. And I think to sit on our hands and not make a submission is to kind of say that, we're happy for this levy to take place. So I have spoken earlier today with our Director of Water and Waste, and the recommendation is that we request the Director to make a submission to IPART, highlighting the negative ramifications of this proposed Dam Safety New South Wales levy. And I believe that, as per what's been discussed, is there hasn't been a time when a levy has been proposed and it hasn't gone through. So look, it could be falling on deaf ears. However, I do think it's important for us to say, look, this is going to be another burden on council, another cost on council, where the state government's come up with a great idea, but unfortunately we're going to see the negative ramifications of that. Thank you.
Anyone wish to speak against that? Any further comments?
I just have a comment in terms that I find it quite ironic, Mr Mayor, that we're subjected to a levy when we don't even have water security. Just a comment, that's all.
I don't think this is the end of it. Further comments? I'll put the recommendation in. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. 8.8. Councillor Southwell, seconded Councillor Coates. You want to speak to that, Councillor Southwell?
Yeah, just briefly, thank you. It's been awesome to actually receive this report from Naomi. I think, earlier in the year when Naomi's trip was supportive, it was we didn't know what it would entail. But from what we can see here, there's been obviously some great outcomes of networking with people around the world. knowledge sharing, professional development. But overall, there's two other really important things that have come out of this. The exposure to innovative water management solutions and technologies that can be adopted to our local context and improve efficiency and service delivery is probably one. And the other one is about learning from global best practices and bringing back new perspectives that can inform long-term decision-making within our organisation. And continuous improvement in our strategic plans is another one. So well done to Naomi on a thorough report, and looking forward to seeing how that's actually implemented on the ground.
Anyone wish to speak against that report? Any further comments on that report? Councillor Beck.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I was very interested to read the report because water is one of my hobby horses, and pleasing to see that the inferences of potable reuse or reuse potable water, or whichever way you want to call it, there's not very much of that around even in the world. It's indirect potable use. And I know the director, Mr. Latham, and I, we attended some years back a conference. And in Australia, there was only probably one tiny little wagon that had direct potable reuse. And it's mostly indirect potable use, and it's something that we need to learn from, that we don't want to get fixated on the direct potable use. We need to look at these other options, and what we're doing now with the reuse scheme is industrial and sort of secondary reuse. Don't want to get hooked up that the direct potable reuse is the panacea of all ills. I can tell you that, because the technology is not there and the cost is not there. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Further comments? Councillor Berg.
Mr. Mayor, I wonder if Councillor Betts would be kind enough to explain to us the difference between the two types of water he's talking about.
Councillor Betts, or you
I said we can.
Yes. You raised it, you go.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. You put me on the spot. No, Councillor Burke, thank you for your question. Direct potable use is where they actually put sewage water into a plant, and out the end comes a glass of water and you go and drink it. Indirect potable use is, and Perth is probably a classic example, where they inject the reuse water into an aquifer and then draw it out down some kilometres away, that it actually has been filtered out. Now, that's one example of it. Now, there are other examples of it as well, but that's essentially it in a nutshell. But if you want a scientific...
That's a very good explanation, but Bruce, do you want to add to that?
No, you're right.
I think it was fantastic.
And we'll move then. Any further comments? There being no further comments, I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Carried. We'll move to governance and strategy. 9.1, could I have a move in the seconder? Show the names. Councillor Coates, seconded Councillor Mears. Do you wish to speak to 9.1?
Just very briefly, Mr. Mayor, and that's to say it's good to actually see some master plans happening in our regional areas. Just around this one, and probably the other one, I have a question. Has the master plan actually taken into consideration the potential impact of the Hills of Gold project if it gets approved, or whether it will actually impact or not?
Ooh, we can decline it because of it.
Regional services. Can we take that on notice, or do you want to answer it?
Unless Paul Kelly's got an answer, I haven't, Mr. Mayor.
Not a terribly good one, other than to say, that the Hills of Gold were part of the community consultation as well. So they provided some input, and we're just listening to that. And we don't believe in the near future there'll be any issues with that strategy or that master plan rolling.
We might take that question on notice. Councillor Coates, further comments? Councillor Southwell.
Just in terms of Councillor Coates's comment, I don't see how that would actually impact, having a development would actually impact this master plan. If anything, this master plan having it in place will only be an improvement to that whole area. If there's additional staff, additional employees, if there's additional movements happening around that area, then this is going to add to that, because there'll be more people around to actually utilise these facilities. But I don't think as a council we should be kind of growing our master plans to cater for one-off developments that could be for a shorter period of time. because these sorts of things, there will be a flush of people in the Nundle Hanging Rock area while it's developed, but after that it will continue on for many years with minimal impact really. So I don't really see the relevance of that question.
Councillor Rodder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Coates is absolutely right. There is an impact from the proposed Hills of Gold wind farm if it is approved and then constructed. I believe that the Hanging Rock Lookout will be overlooking a vista of turbines in a specific part of that. What you currently, for those that have been up there recently, what they would currently see. So it would definitely have an impact on the vista of the Hanging Rock Lookout if that is approved.
Great. Comments, Councillor Sutherland?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to add my comment in support of the recommendation and the following item, the same comment is still relevant, and that is that it's great to see the level of community consultation that happens throughout this process. Reading through the attachments, and then actually you can see that the comments from the community majoritively positive support. The master plan and the creation of this master plan, and added some great ideas that really shaped what this master plan looks like today. And so just to really acknowledge all the community that participated in that consultation that shaped the plan in front of us.
Further comments before I put the motion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. We'll go to 9.2, Nundle Recreation. Could I have a move in a second and move Councillor Tickle, seconded Councillor Sutherland. Councillor Tickle, you wish to speak to that? Anyone wish to speak against that? Any further comments? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. We'll move to 9.3, Local Government Conference. Could we have a mover? Councillor Betts?
I'll certainly move it.
Councillor Mayor. Councillor Betts, do you want to speak to that?
We need, yes, I do, Mr Mayor. We need to nominate representatives, and it's going to be very difficult, but I know one that won't be there. It's going to be difficult. We can only sort of nominate, really, at this stage, the position, really, the mayor and deputy mayor, whoever that may be.
I think in terms of this, it's just saying that we're reminding council that we should think over the next couple of weeks about preparing motions that could be drafted.
I know.
Yeah. So, anyone wish to speak against that? Further comments about that? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
That's against, carried. Councillors, will move to 10, Community Services, and 10.1, Tamworth Regional Museum and Archive Strategy. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Southwell, Councillor Sutherland. Councillor Southwell, you wish to speak to that? Anyone wish to speak against that? Any further comments on that? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. We'll go to 10.2, Regional Arts Advisory Committee. Punch through a few here. Mover and a second. Move Councillor Tickle, second to Councillor Southwell. You wish to speak to that, Councillor Tickle?
Yes, in May to congratulate the group on the sculpture track, and importantly for raising or contributing all that money, $50,000. That's wonderful. It's a great example of what can be done when a community is behind a project, and it certainly will be good for tourism. We've got silo trials, and then we'll have sculpture trials. I mean, the sky's the limit, so thank you.
Further, anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Further comments on the recommendation, Councillor Southwell?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I was fortunate enough to attend this arts advisory committee meeting and chair the meeting in the absence of Councillor Sutherland that day, and we did receive an amazing presentation from James Hook. Thank you for coming along tonight as well, James, and Stephen King as well, who presented on the night. I can tell you the committee are so excited, and thank you for Daniel for coming along as well and talking to that as well tonight. But this really is an exciting project. I don't think we really had enough time here tonight hearing about it. I'd love the council to actually, if we had time through our director Gina, to actually organise a bit of a presentation on this, because it really is an exciting project for our region. I know we've got a lot on the agenda tonight, so I won't harp on about it, only to say well done to the Bendemeer Committee for pulling this all together. This is astronomical. Like, we've got world-class sculptures. We've got a number of them coming into our region. It will become a huge tourism site for people. It'll bring in a large amount of money to our economy, and it's a very, very exciting thing. So I hope that as a council, we can support this project in terms of in-kind support that it will need to be a sustainable project. But it's a very, very exciting time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Coe.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I just want to make a comment in regards to how much has actually been achieved by this committee in the last bit of time. I think, being able to take it out to the community, do the amount of consultation and get the ideas from the community all through the region is actually now starting to give us the results in what's actually happening and what the public and our residents can go and see. And, things like the public art for Manila that's going to happen, the Fitzroy Street work, and the Women, Life and Freedom murals, those sorts of things. It's been a really, really positive. I've been very proud to be part of that committee, and I look forward to seeing what they can actually do in the future.
Further comments, councillors? Councillor Betts?
Yeah, very briefly, and I know we've got a big agenda item, and I agree with my fellow councillors. We had the privilege on the weekend to go up through Bendemeer and actually see the big chook's head up there, and it's very impressive, and the other bits of sculpture around. But the work that the committee does in relation to public art, I think it's bringing us into the modern age, and I do commend everyone and the staff for that. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Further comments? Councillor Sutherland.
Just to speak in support of the recommendation, really, I think the comments that were made during the community presentation at the start of the workshop, talking about this is the intergenerational legacy. A legacy through public art that is an investment in Tamworth Regional Council right across the region. And the Nest project is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I know that staff and community had to move really quick to make it happen. We're talking around hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of public art that's being invested in and placed within our region, that we understand the economic benefit, we understand the impact that has, and it's a real testament to the community and Jamie who've been able to make it happen given the time frame. Also want to just make a quick comment around the projector that happened out through Naidoc Week in Fitzroy Plaza. I think that as a trial run, that was a great initiative. They really tested the waters, and through the minutes of the report that provided an update on that. I think when we talk around generational legacy, it's not just us as a council, but it's a testament to the staff and for Bridget Guthrie and the team who pulled it all together. It's been a massive year with a massive plan and strategies put in place, and to see the Nest, along with all of these initiatives, move forward is going to have an impact on the community for generations to come.
Thank you. Further comments, councillors? No further comments. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. We'll go to 10.3. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Burke, Councillor Sutherland. Councillor Burke, you wish to speak to that?
No.
Anyone wish to speak against that? Any further comments on that particular motion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Councillors, before I call for a motion to move into closed council, I'll ask the acting DM, have we had any requests for any of those items in closed to be brought forward into open?
Just the representation from the community consultation for...
And that's not to you?
No, it was not to me, but it was to you, Mr Mayor, but no representations to me.
That person is not here? No.
Yeah.
Do you wish to... Can you give me a reason you want to bring it into? Oh, I think there's some reason why.
It's the sale of public land, and I guess basically that's the reason that I believe it should be
There's a lot of commercial and confidence reasons why that report should be considered in closed council, and there is a lot of detail there that councillors will need to discuss that will not be open to the public.
So we have to say no to that. Thank you. Councillor Rodder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I do agree with Mr Gill in relation to this, that item, that it should be in open. It's a matter of public interest. It's a significant piece of land. And I believe, that, as we're aware that, EOI has probably morphed, I believe it's a project that it fails to deliver what the original EOI was intended to do, and I believe that probably should be heard and open. I appreciate the comments that have been made in relation to commercial in confidence. One other that I believe should be also in open council is lot 73, or part lot 73, DP 11074041, in relation to the old velodrome site. I don't believe that would impact the provisions of 10A of the Local Government Act, and I believe that this is a matter of public interest and a great news story, as we heard from Mr Hanlon and the Tamworth University Reference Group, who have worked very hard over a long period of time to bring that project to fruition. I know that they're probably extremely excited about this decision, and it really I can't see any impediment to that being heard in open council, that matter.
That's item 12.3.
Good question, Mr Mayor.
Yep. Yes.
It's item 12.3.
Yep.
There will be some items in there that is commercial in confidence and not open to the public. But if it is brought into open, councillors will have to keep their discussion to the bare minimum of what is in the summary of the report, so that we're not releasing any commercial in confidence reasons, which is why it's in closed.
Do you want to continue? I'll take it to the vote.
Put it to the vote, Mr Mayor.
Okay, councillors, we've heard from a request from Councillor Rodder, and we've heard an explanation from Karen, our acting GM, as to why it shouldn't. Can I ask who would support it going into open? Who doesn't support it going into open? Lost so to speak, closed, councillors. Councillors will now move on, and I'll call for a motion to move into closed council. Councillor Berg, seconded Councillor Cates. All those in favour say aye.
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 Those against? Let's move into closed council.
Why not?
Acting GM to report.
Okay, Mr Mayor,
We've got to shut down the.
Get rid of the chip packets.
Do a little tap dance and a song.
What is it? 10 to 10. Yeah.
I'd like to chime.
Great.
Excuse me, councillors, we're getting a report from Matthew.
in relation to the closed reports, items 12.1 to 12.13, all items were as per the business paper with the exception of 12.3, which including a public project was to that effect into the recommendation of point 1.
Could I ask for a motion to accept? Councillor Levotta, second Councillor Southwell. All those in favour say aye.